Hey guys, it is the Comics Kid 2099 here, and I'm here to talk about an X-Men graphic novel that I finished recently, X-Men Day of the Atom. This collects adjectiveless X-Men 157 through 165, and this is two arcs of adjectiveless X-Men written by Chuck Austen, and then one issue written by Chris Claremont, and the whole book is illustrated by Salvador Larroca. And this is from that brief period of soft relaunch in the X-Men, where all of the creative teams were kind of being shaken up and switched around, and a lot of the characters were kind of being switched around. This was right after Grant Morrison's New X-Men ended, and right around the time when Joss Whedon's Astonishing X-Men was beginning. And so Chuck Austen was writing Uncanny X-Men, and then he was switched over to this title, which was New X-Men, and he took a few of the plot points and characters that he was using in Uncanny X-Men and brought them over into this title. And so basically this is two separate story arcs. The first story arc is this X-Men team, Havoc, Iceman, Juggernaut, Rogue, Gambit, Wolverine, and Polaris. This X-Men team, they go to China because there is a new Zorn, and I'm not going to go into Zorn in this video. I did do a video about half a year ago trying to explain Zorn, so if you aren't sure what I'm talking about here, go watch that video. But there's a Chinese mutant who, his head is a black hole, and he sucks this entire village into his head accidentally, and so the X-Men go there to investigate that. That's the first story arc, and then the second story arc is this new Brotherhood of Mutants, which is frankly kind of a pathetic group of characters. They are attacking this festival of people who are celebrating the founding of America, and then the X-Men attack them, and then this Brotherhood of Mutants is like, okay, so let's go attack their school. And then they do that, and then Juggernaut and this other character from another comic book series, they get sucked into another dimension. And that's basically what happens in this book. Is this book as bad or worse than Chuck Austen's Uncanny X-Men run? I'm going to say no. This actually feels a little bit more readable than his Uncanny X-Men run, mainly because he had so much time to draw out a lot of these really painful, awful storylines in his Uncanny X-Men run. He had like 6 volumes of his Uncanny X-Men run, so there was a lot of time for a lot of that to percolate and build up over time. Here, he's only got 2 storylines. It's 8 issues that he's working on, and so it doesn't really feel like he has that much time or opportunity to make things really awful like he did in his Uncanny run. In a lot of ways, he's kind of cleaning up some of the messes that he made in Uncanny X-Men. He's kind of taking care of that whole love square thing between Iceman, Havoc, Polaris, and Nurse Annie, and that's really weird. It just kind of fizzles out of nowhere. His Uncanny run, in a lot of ways, it felt like it was building up Havoc and Nurse Annie as being the X-Men couple to watch out for, and then in this book, Annie finds out that the X-Men were not successful in apprehending the Brotherhood of Mutants, and then it's like suddenly an epiphany hits her that the X-Men are not always going to be able to apprehend the bad guys, and so now she's afraid that her son is in danger, and so she cowardly breaks up with Havoc without actually telling him that she's breaking up with him. She sends Northstar to go do that for her, and then she takes her son somewhere else, and she's never seen or heard from again. I actually don't think that Nurse Annie or her son Carter were ever seen again after this run was over, and I was fine with that because I didn't really care about either of those characters very much at all. And so it's really weird that Chuck Austen spent so much time building up that couple, and then he kind of just ruins it without any real reason, and the reason that he does try to give is kind of silly and forced, if you ask me. And there's not a whole lot else to this book. These characters are all pretty whiny. They all act like little kids whining about really silly things. Alex and Iceman are constantly bickering in this book. Iceman and Juggernaut are constantly bickering in this book. Rogue and Gambit, it almost feels like they're not even in this book because they barely get to do anything here. And in a way, it feels like Chuck Austen was like, okay, I want this character, and this character. And they're like, okay, you can have them, but you also have to have Rogue and Gambit because Chris Claremont was using them in Extreme X-Men, and now that series is over, and he's not using them in his Uncanny run now, so you need those characters here to kind of fill out the team. And so they're here, but it doesn't really feel like they're doing anything. And when they are here, it feels like they're acting petty and childish like everyone else on this team. Gambit is accidentally blinded in the first arc of this book, and then he's cured at the end of the second arc. Actually, he's cured in the Chris Claremont issue that's at the very end of this book. So he was only blind for like 6 issues maybe, and whenever he's on screen, he's always whining about how that's Rogue's fault. And Rogue is kind of acting mad at him, and rightly so, because Gambit is being a real butthead about it. And there's not really a whole lot of plot here. The first book, or the first arc, these guys go and they rescue Zorn, and then at the end of the second arc, he leaves them to go and meditate for a little bit. And I don't think that Shin Zorn was ever seen again, although if he was, I think it was like in one of Bendis's New Avengers arcs, and I haven't read any of Bendis's New Avengers, so I don't know if that arc handled that character or how they handled that character. But Shin Zorn was never seen again in the X-Men world, and so it really feels like kind of a waste of a character to bring in this new Zorn guy and then get rid of him immediately after you introduce him. And it literally feels like they immediately get rid of him. He's brought in at the end of the first arc, and then about halfway into the second arc, they bring him out to help fight this new Brotherhood, and then he's like, I have to go handle some things. I need to go meditate. I'm leaving you guys. Okay, who are you again? You've been here for all of 5 minutes. This book really just kind of feels meh. It doesn't feel awful like his Uncanny X-Men run did. It just feels like it's kind of there. And I think part of the reason for that is that all of the X-Men books were kind of getting new footing after the soft relaunch where the creative teams were kind of switched around a little bit. Meanwhile, this book, both of these arcs really just feel like transition period where Chuck Austen, it's almost like he knew that he wasn't going to be on this book for very much longer, so he just wanted to kind of kill time for a couple of arcs, and it doesn't really feel like anything happens here. It's just kind of like we're resolving a couple of the things that Chuck Austen was doing in his Uncanny X-Men run. We're getting rid of Juggernaut, we're getting rid of Nurse Annie, and we're kind of handling that whole Iceman Polaris Havoc thing, although that's going to be brought back into play in the next run by Peter Milligan, and basically it just feels like Chuck Austen is just kind of treading water, waiting for the next guy to come and write the X-Men title. It doesn't feel as offensively bad as his Uncanny X-Men run, but it's also not really good either. It's just kind of boring. And so those are about all of my thoughts on X-Men Day of the Atom. And I guess I should go ahead and mention that Chris Claremont, he did write the last issue in this book, and nothing really happens there either. It's basically just showing all of the X-Men characters, even the ones who aren't normally featured in this title, all of the X-Men characters celebrating Christmas with each other. And it's a fine little issue, but it's really not a very necessary issue when talking about the rest of the stuff that's going on in this book. So those are my thoughts on X-Men Day of the Atom. I hope that you guys liked this review, and if you've read this book, tell me what you thought of it in the comments below. And if you guys want me to keep doing these X-Men reviews like I've been doing, please tell me in the comments below, because I'm not really sure if everyone else is enjoying these X-Men reviews like I am. I love the X-Men, and I could talk about them till the sun goes down, but if nobody else really cares about the X-Men and nobody wants to see me talk about them, I can do videos about other things. But I do have some other X-Men videos planned for the foreseeable future. For the next couple of weeks, I've got some X-Men storylines from the much more recent time period. This comes from like 10 years ago or more. I have some X-Men stories from like the last year or two that I've read recently, and I will be reviewing those in the next couple of weeks. So look out for those. I won't tell you what they are. You'll just have to wait and see. And then about 3 weeks from now, I'll probably start covering Peter Milligan's run on X-Men. So also be sure to look out for other videos that I do throughout the rest of this week. So I will see you guys later in the week with some other videos. Catch you later. Have a great rest of the day.